Do you know what most marketing messages sound like? They sound like this. Me, 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 me. I mean, when you go to most people's websites or you meet someone at an event, typically it's a chorus refrain like the one that I just said, me, 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 me. But what if your marketing was actually something that sounded like this? You, 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 you. Well, I'll tell you, when you go to an event or you go to a networking event or you go to a dinner party, there's two ways to connect with people. Number one is to stand there and shove business cards in people's faces. And the second one is to be positioned as an expert or an authority in your niche, which is the reason why I tell you that a book, simply put, is the single best business card in the world. And that's because when you hand someone a book, unlike handing someone a business card, the discussion is now you. In other words, it's about the person that you're talking to. Today, I've got an amazing couple that I'm going to introduce you to. Welcome to EdTalks Live. Hey, what's up, party people? My name's Ed Rush, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. Listen, we are in pack-in mode in Rush Central. You should see the rest of the office if I can turn my camera. We got boxes and bags. We are ready to descend upon Dallas, Texas for the Big Pivot event. If you're not registered, by the way, the website is below, bigpivotevent.com. You have literally like a day and a half to get your butt into this event. The website's ready. The Zoom meeting's ready. You can attend live or virtual. This is the first hybrid event like its kind, and we are getting ready to rock and roll. By the way, just joined us. Jump in on the left-hand side, say hello and chat. If you're on Facebook or Twitter, that's below you right now. I do want to say hello to some of our friends in chat, but before I do that, let me just tell you about this week and what we got planned for EdTalks Live. First of all, today, I'm interviewing Charles and Elaine Sanger. We're talking about book publishing. If you don't know Charles and Elaine, you're about to hear their story. This is a couple that have traveled the world on a sailboat, and now they're bringing their message to you to show you how to write, publish, and promote and brand a book. They're also a couple, and I'll tell you, I know very few couples who actually can do business together. We're going to talk about that as well. Tomorrow, I have a big surprise for you. I'm going to take you into the event room, and I'm going to show you some of the behind-the-scenes things that are happening at the event room. So tomorrow's behind-the-scenes live event secrets. I'm going to take you into our event space to what some would call a blank canvas. The tables won't even have been set up. The background won't have been set up, and I'm going to show you around the event space, all the way from the front door to where you come in, all the way to the green room where I meet back with my speakers. And I'm going to show you all of my tips and tricks behind the scenes at a live event. Don't miss tomorrow's version of EdTalks Live. And then on Thursday and Friday, if you're not registered for Big Pivot, you've got an opportunity to watch a small clip. So my team's going to be turning on EdTalks Live right here at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. We're going to open up the doors so that you can see inside of Big Pivot and get a chance to look and see the event. Now, you're not going to get the whole 3 days of the event. That's reserved for the event attendees, but you're going to get an opportunity to jump inside and take a look for 2 days. And then just so you know, next week, EdTalks Live is taking a little break. Some of you, I think Dr. Wendy Lee just said she was on vacation last week. After live events, usually I have just a little bit of time to decompress, take a few deep breaths, okay? And I'm going to be doing that next week. So we're going to take a week off. EdTalks Live will kick off right after the July 4th weekend, which is right around the corner, by the way. Let me say hello to some of my friends in chat, and then we'll get rocking and rolling. Hello, Barry Gamar, who showed up early, 8:46 today. Dr. Wendy Lee, she's on her way back from vacation. Love to see you back. Dennis, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Wendell Buggs as well. Denise, hello. Just said hello to Diana as well. The birds are singing in the garden. Blessings to you, buddy. Our prayers are with you for continued health and recovery. Robert, good to see you as well. I heard that there was like a storm coming through the Dallas area, actually right now as we speak. Hey, Gissy, good to see you as well. B-Day Gratitude Vacation. Good to see you, bud, back in Germany. Hello, Sally. Welcome to the show as well. Hello, Sally. Welcome back. Gina, good to see you as well. Yes, Sally, if you are registered, you're going to get an email from me today, actually, with a login to the membership site. That email is going to give you the Zoom links, all the times for the training and everything. All the resources are downloadable. We got you taken care of. What's up? Arthur and his 12-year-old son, Jacob, in the house. Good to see you as well. All right, so I'm going to welcome my guests, but I just want to point you back to what I said in the beginning. Look, if you do not have a book, now's a great time to get it done. If you have a book, now's a great time to launch and brand a second book. It took me a few books to get the flow going just a little bit, but I want to introduce to you Charles and Elaine Sanger. Not only have they been longtime clients of mine, but I consider them friends as well. Two of the most abundance-minded, heart-centered people that I know. They're just two in a very small group of people that I go to with my publishing questions. So before I get into the questions, welcome Charles and Elaine. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having us. We're glad to be here.
We're glad to be here. Hi, everyone.
Beautiful set and a great background. Thank you for, it just looks great. Look at that. I have some, every once in a while, people ask me about live streaming. And I'm telling you, if you're a guest on someone's show, you do it just like Charles and Elaine. I'm going to show you. Look at the background, the bookcase. The background looks great. They're lighting.
One of our navigation instruments back there.
He's got his navigation instruments. And look at that. I mean, it's great. Like I've seen, I'm going to talk about this at the event this week, but I've seen people who put like their head in front of the window, and it's like, if I could I can show you my camera, but I won't play around doing that. So I want to jump into your story because you have as unique of a story as I've ever heard. In fact, when we first met 3 or 4 years ago, when you told me this, I'm like, really? This is like a crazy story. So take us from Chicago on a sailboat all the way to South America. By the way, this is the beginning of where we're going today, but I want you to share the story of how you made it from Chicago to South America on a sailboat and why.
Why?
Why?
Well, everybody wants to know how we got out of the Great Lakes to get to the ocean. And they think we went down the Mississippi. No, we didn't do that. We didn't go through the St. Lawrence Seaway. Right. We went up Lake Michigan, across Lake Mackinac Straits, down Lake Huron, into St. Clair River, Lake St. Clair, Detroit River, across Lake Erie, and then we hit the Niagara River. And we had to make absolutely certain we found the right turn into the Erie Canal on the Niagara River, because if we went too far,
we go over the edge of the Niagara River.
Results would be disastrous.
So wait, so if you turned right?
You turn right. And the interesting thing, it's not really marked. It's just a lot of grass with a little like canal that's sort of dug out. So there's no real sign to say turn right here.
And it is anybody that's read any sailing stories knows that it's called the ditch. And there's a good reason for that, because I think I did a 360 after we passed it. I go, was that really it? And I had to go around and look before I actually went back in and committed to it.
So I've been on the Canadian side at Niagara Falls.
Right.
And the water's flowing at the point at which it hits the end of that stuff's moving pretty fast. So if you make the wrong turn, you end up like barreling over Niagara Falls. But if you make we were
on the upper side of the falls on the river as it comes off of Lake Erie.
Yeah. And the other thing that we had to do was we were a sailboat. So we had a mast in the boat, and we had to take the mast down, build a cradle, put the mast on the top of the boat before we could enter the canal, right?
Right. And we went into the boatyard and they said, there's the crane, give us $50. There's the crane. And I go, what? We're used to having people help us. That mast weighs 1,000 pounds and it goes 7 feet down into the boat.
Right.
Oh my goodness. So you had this crane that took the mast out and you brought it down on your own.
Yeah. And so we had to do it ourselves. Yeah. But we crossed through lots of locks and bridges, lift bridges going across the Erie Canal. And then we got to the Hudson River. And of course, we went down the Hudson River into New York. Whoa. And from New York, we had access to the world.
Yeah. So from Lake Erie to the Hudson River, down literally right through where you can see the whole New York skyline, right past Manhattan, and then out past Ellis Island and into the ocean. Right.
Yeah, it was pretty wild going through New York. That was I've visited New York, been there as a tourist, but going through as a sailor, that was pretty awesome.
So what What
see
size
the
boat?
thing that way.
What size boat were you on?
38 foot.
So this isn't like a huge. This is like this is a sailboat.
This
Yeah.
is a sailboat. It's a big, heavy offshore sailboat.
Now, why in heaven's name? Why were you going to South America in the first place? You're trying to get away from the authorities, or no?
Well, we were in our 50s, and we noticed that people around us were either getting ready to retire or they were getting ill or whatever. And we said, we're not going to wait until retirement to do what we really want to do. So that became a long process, right, Charles?
Right.
Yeah.
And part of the reason we didn't know when we left, we didn't know exactly where we were going, but we were a little bit unique to the cruising community because we had an objective when we got down into the island area and down into Latin America.
Yeah.
And we had been going down with our church and teaching these budget workshops and financial seminars with churches and with a micro enterprise organization,
small businesses
down there. So we were going to combine our love for cruising with that. And we were tired of working in corporate America.
Yeah.
We were realizing our life wasn't being fulfilled there. We were filling somebody else's goals. And so we looked at a way we could combine what we loved in life, still make income,
right,
and help people while we were doing it. So it took us a while. We didn't just, make that decision and jump on the boat and go. It took a few years to get to the point where we could do that. But that's how we put that together and why we put it together.
And we started a nonprofit, a 501c3. So we were raising funds. Most of our living was on our the money that we had, but we were actually raising funds to help the people that we were working with down there. Wow. So it became a whole adventure doing that.
So totally self-sustained. So take me out to sea really quickly. Anything crazy happen out there? Or did you just sail south and everything made it?
Oh, no, there's always crazy things that happen at sea. Let's see, going out to sea, we left from the Chesapeake with a group of about 200 other boats,
right,
in a thing called the Caribbean 1500. And we saw each other that night when we left. And that was the last we saw boats until we round up down in Tortola. Okay, we were kind of out there by ourselves. We were talking to them on the radio. But that first night crossing the Gulf Stream, I've been through rough water, but crossing the Gulf Stream was like trying to sail in a washing machine.
Yeah, it was like, oh
wow.
The water was coming from every direction. The boat was going every direction. Down below was so noisy that we were taking socks and stuffing it in places that were rattling that normally didn't rattle.
Yeah.
And you're going through this and sleeping on the boat and waking up and coming back up and seeing if the sun's out.
You don't really sleep. Somebody has to be watched 24 hours.
Right.
And when there's certain conditions, no one's really sleeping. So
right.
We were 12 days. We were 12 days at sea, out in the Atlantic. We were out almost a third of the way across the Atlantic before we caught the trades and could turn south and go down to the islands.
I think,
and that was a big challenge because we got through the Gulf Stream, and then it became like glass.
Yeah.
The ocean was not moving. There was no wind. There was no nothing. And we knew we didn't have enough fuel to make it to the Caribbean. And we were getting to the point we didn't have enough fuel to get back to the U.S. So we had to sail. So we became very conservative with our fuel. Yeah. And if we got a little bit of wind, we sailed as far as we could on what little wind we had. And that's why we wound up going really far east. But when the trades filled in, we had plenty of wind. It was great sailing.
And then you saw Johnny Depp on a pirate ship.
Well, that's another story. I do want to say one thing that I hope people take away from this is that we had a dream. We worked real hard to make it come true. And we certainly did. And it was not something small. It was something that most of our friends were like, you're going to do what?
Yeah.
So stepping out is possible, and great things can happen because of it.
Well, and the neat thing is, as you're listening to the story, Charles and Elaine didn't just sail south and then hang out for a week Like, you know, the normal church mission trip that kind of goes for a week, long enough to get as many posts on Facebook as possible and then come back to the normal world. If I remember correctly, you were there for what, 7 years?
Yeah. We were there. We were working on the Dominican Republic in the tourist area, Punta Cana, if anybody knows the area down there where all the hotels are, all those all-inclusive resorts. We were working with the workers that worked in those hotels.
Right.
Wow.
So these are a lot of young adults. They came out of the cane fields or from very poor areas, and they came there because of the stability of work. But
yeah, and we used to have teams come down. They would come down and visit us, and we had summer interns and things like that. So we were the receiver of those people that go on these short-term trips, but we were living there full time. That's
cool. And so you were working with these natives of the Dominican Republic who grew up in poverty, but then they worked on these resorts, which were just like all you can eat buffets. I mean, how crazy was that for them as they were seeing?
That was very crazy because it was Dominicans and Haitians. Right. And a lot of the Haitians that were there had been sold into slavery. Wow. To the DR, to a construction company over there to build those resorts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they had been involved in building them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there were a lot of people from internationally there too, as well. So there are people from Spain and France, all over Europe who would come there. Lots of Russians who would come there for jobs because the tourism area attracts young people from around the world, and they work there and they send their money home. So we had an intercultural center where we were teaching language in different cultures to these people. And so help them do better in their work, all right, in the hotels. So we had a very international group of people, but we spent a lot of time actually out in the cane fields with the Haitians and the people in poverty, really extreme poverty as well. Wow.
So you came back to the United States. How different was it? We're going to get, by the way, for those of you who just joined us, and a whole bunch of you just did, it's not about the book. We're actually going to talk about book launch and publishing tips. I just thought it would be so great. Charles and Elaine have such a unique story, and frankly, such unique hearts and the mission that they have for the world. I thought it'd be fun to share this story. They made it back, by the way, after 7 years. So they made it back. Elaine got back into the corporate world. Charles started doing, so we're going to talk about that in a second. But take us back. You came back, I think, if I remember, what was it, right around 2008, right? Wasn't that when the market changed and that brought you home? Is that what it was?
What happened is 2008, and we've been involved in, this is the third recession we've been involved in business. That was the second one, 2008. It took a little while for it to catch up. Our donations started dropping. Yeah. The exchange rate in the Dominican Republic, I mean, it cost us like $140 to get a tank of gas.
Wow.
So the exchange rate became crazy, and we knew that we couldn't continue because of the economy. So I came back to the U.S. and got a corporate job, and that sustained us for a couple more years, back and forth. So
I stayed down. At first, we were trying to restructure what we were doing so that it would work in the financial situation we were in. I had a Dominican and a Haitian that I worked with really heavily, and we were trying to figure out how to do that. And we were doing interviews and talking to other leaders, political leaders, business leaders, ministry leaders on the island, trying to figure out what to do. And just the situation there was just coming unglued.
Yeah. But the one thing I do want to say is we've had 3 businesses. We look at our corporate jobs as really helping us to fund and build our kitty for the things that we want to do. Right. So if we had to go back into corporate and work for someone else, that's really helping us to step back out again.
It gave you the opportunity to grow what you want to grow.
Right.
So take us into books all of a sudden now. So just so you know, as you're watching, if you just joined us, you missed the introduction. But Charles and Elaine, longtime clients and friends of mine, they help people write, publish, and launch books. And the quality of work that they do is excellent. There's some people in the book world, and by the way, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus. There are some people in the book world that are a little churn and burn. In other words, throw together a book, slap a cover on it, get it out there, create a bestseller. But Charles and Elaine help authors create great books that they can really be proud of. And so take me from the Dominican Republic into helping people write books. How did that cross the bridge on that one for me?
Okay.
Charles.
Well, okay. We were bringing down college students, interns, to help us during the summer and even during the semester, because we were teaching cultural principles and language to these workers, because that secured their job. That made them more valuable to the resorts.
It was like a college education.
For them, for them, learning a second language was like a college education. So we were bringing colleges down, and we were hitting colleges up here in the United States. And one of the schools that I went to listened to our story, and they said, "Oh, you need to be in our doctoral program." Okay. So we talked about it a little bit, and I did that because it's a doctorate in intercultural studies. So I was learning about culture, and this particular program was not a program you could do coming right out of school. It was one you had to be in the field working with a cross-cultural situation, and all the work you were doing was about that situation. So I was doing that as we went through this, and about the time we were finishing up down there, as things were closing down, I had my dissertation done, and we realized that dissertation was going to go on a bookshelf in a library and gather dust. So we decided to make it into a popular book, and that book you just threw up there, Gilligan Meets Google, was the result.
I was a little quick on the trigger there, but this is Charles' book, which is it's just a very clever title. You can see that the book here is called Gilligan Meets Google, and this, if I'm correct, was your first. This was your first published book, is that right?
My first published book, first published book. I've written lots of stuff for corporate and academic, of course, but that's the first published one, and that was an experience going through it. But after we were done, because of Elaine's great work in marketing expertise, we went #1 in 3 categories on Amazon. So I had people coming to me saying, "Can you help us write a book?" And I didn't kind of like some of the programs we'd been through. They were kind of loose and, whatever. I'm a project manager, so I'm very structured. That's my career before all this started happening. So I decided to take my project management, what we'd learned about publishing, and help people write a book. And the people we were getting coming to us they weren't really entrepreneurs.
Yep.
They were older people that had had a career in corporate and had retired, or they'd been through some major catastrophe in life, and they wanted to write about it.
And there's one thing I want to say about that. People started coming to us. We weren't seeking them out. And there's a key there for the audience. When we were in the Caribbean, we originally thought we were going to be teaching these stewardship principles to micro enterprise and things like that. But people kept coming to us and asking us to teach them English. Now, we weren't looking to say we're going to teach English. They came to us, and we were going, we're not English teachers. We don't do this, So that when we realized it happened so often, we went to some of the leaders in the country, and they said, teach them English. If that's what they want, help them. So that's what we did. We created our Intercultural Center and hired a bunch of teachers to help them. Okay. So what happened with the book, people started coming to us and asking us to help them with their book. So when we see people come to us and ask us to help them, we know that's sort of what we should be doing.
That's true. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that is on Saturday morning. So the last segment on Saturday at Big Pivot, which I know you're both coming to, that I'm teaching is getting paid for who you are, not what you do, or it's a segment on consulting. And one of the first things I tell the people who want to be consultants is, what do people ask you now? Like when you're at a dinner party or whether you're hanging out with your friends, when you say something about your experience and people go, wow, could you tell me more about that? That actually can turn into some sort of a consulting business. And I think it's interesting, your story, because a book is much like taking a sailboat from Chicago to South America. You have a mission, and a passion, but you have to get the right directions. And if you make the wrong turn, you can go over the falls, But then even when you get out of the harbor, the seas are rough, and you have to go sometimes a completely different direction than you thought you needed to catch the trade winds. And then eventually you get some wind in your sails and you start getting some success. And I'm like, that's interesting. You know, that whole story you told is actually a story about your book. And by the way, if you just joined us and you're like sailing and Chicago, well, we're talking about Charles and Elaine's trip on a sailboat to their mission down in Dominican Republic. This is a show called It's Not About the Book. My name's Ed Rush. This is Charles and Elaine Sanger. We're talking about some of the publishing strategies you can use. We're going to start to talk about that. But people started asking them, how do I write a book? And it's interesting what you said too. The people who were attracted to you, they weren't necessarily trying to start a business. They weren't even thinking about how much money they could make on a book. They really wanted to share their message. They were in a stage in life where they had something they wanted to share, and they really wanted to share their message. And I'll show your website in a second, but they've got some success stories of people that they've worked with on their website. But let's get into some of the book publishing strategies. You know, everyone who's on chat right now, and I should say hello to some of our friends, by the way. Gina just said, told a little story about how she moved overseas after losing her sim instructor. They spent 3 years traveling in a caravan. That's actually part of her story. Hey, Carla, welcome to the show. Marty Griffin, welcome as well. So good to see you. Hello, Giovanni. Welcome to the show as well. So glad to have you. I'm here with my friends Charles and Elaine Sanger. If you're going to be at Big Pivot, you're going to get to meet Charles and Elaine. If you're going to Big Pivot virtually, you're still going to get to meet them because I'm going to introduce them to you at some point during the event, and I want to make sure that you have the opportunity. There's Giovanni's. That's her signature diamonds right there. So I love it. So it's so fun. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about, we've got some time and we're going to get into books. Okay. So let's talk about some book strategies. So as you're watching, grab a pen, start to write this stuff down. If you haven't already done so, we're going to open it up in a little bit for some Q&A, but I want to get some of your best book publishing strategies. But you said the title. So when I asked you a couple weeks ago, I said, hey, I want you to be on the show. What do you think is the title? You said, well, the title I think we should go with is It's Not About the Book. So tell me, what does that mean? Like, you help people with books, but what does It's Not About the Book mean to you?
So much in publishing, the courses, the books, the publishers, the agents. It's all about what's your book about, how much can we sell it for, how many can we sell, and where can we put it on the bookshelves, right? One of the things I discovered after I wrote my book, and as I was helping these other folks write their book, is that the author has got to play a key role in there very early in the book, and not just writing it, but writing it from a perspective that book is going to accomplish what they want it to accomplish. And I screwed up and didn't really do that with mine. I got close, but there were some things I found out I could have done better that would have helped me get my message out better. And the other thing we discovered was that if we would have used that book to tell our story, we would probably still be in the Dominican Republic right now working with those tourist workers, okay? Because that's where our heart was. But everything was surrounding around us, and we didn't have a real platform where we could tell our heart and our story and our passion for what was going on there and the issues that we were dealing with. So that's why we wrote a book. And then as I watched our other authors write their first books and watched the struggles they had and the way their books changed them over the course of time, I go, you know, this book thing is really more than just making a book that we can sell. It's about changing our lives as authors. And last year, we started going to some of we're nonfiction, okay? That's the books that I published and basically what we published. But we started going to some fiction book shows. And I'm talking to some of the great fiction authors there, and they're telling me how when they write, the protagonist or the main character in the story is really a reflection of them. They tell their story through that protagonist. And I'm going, wow, that means this whole book thing is about our message.
Yeah.
And it's about getting our message out, and the genre, the book, the way we write the book, what we're writing in the book is just a different way we choose to get our message out there and get our message heard to the world.
And that's why our programs all are your message. So
Yeah.
Our authorship and publishing is Publish Your Message. And we have Catapult Your Message and Monetize Your Message. Everything is really geared to getting that core message. That becomes the central message and content that you can use throughout your career with your clients, online, speaking, and in your book. And once you have that, everything sort of cascades from it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've really thought about it. You've really worked on it. And it's not shallow or hollow.
Yeah, I mean, it really does start with that. It actually starts with like you said, it really starts with who you're trying to connect with and what is it, the problem that you're trying to solve. It starts with your message. By the way, their website is sitting here on the screen right now. This is actually your message central, just to speak about what Charles and Elaine were just sharing, which is their programs are about your message. Publish your message, catapult your message, monetize your message. By the way, I love this picture because if you zoom in on this picture, that is actually Charles and Elaine speaking at Ultimate Speaker last fall.
That's right.
I'm correct, right?
That was there last fall, right?
I love that photo of us together. I hope you don't mind it. I swiped it.
I don't mind at all. I love it. So so for those of you who are on your way to Big Pivot, this is that's the set that we're going to be using. So you're going to get used to seeing Winston Churchill's bunker, because that's the set that we use for.
It's a beautiful set. The whole facility is great.
It's such a beautiful event space, and you're going to love it. If you come live, you're going to love it. If you come digitally, you're going to love it. And by the way, the website's below if you haven't had a chance to register. It's bigpivotevent.com. All right, so you've worked with enough authors to be able to answer this question now. What are some of the qualities of successful authors for you?
Well, when we start them off in our program, we go through a course called Authorship, and then we go through one called Professional and one called Artist, okay? And they've got to understand they're an artist because they're going to be creative. They're going to be creating their own book. But they've got to do it from a professional perspective, and that means they work on a schedule. You know, we've met some of these writers that write, 40 books in their lifetime. I met one fiction writer. She writes she produces 5 new books a year.
Whoa. They're romance novels.
And they're romance novels, but she's 5 new ones every year, and she's got a big following. And the thing they stressed when they were talking is schedule, schedule, schedule. We know you hate that word, but you got to have discipline. You have down how you're doing it, when you're doing it, and you just keep doing it and you get it done. I have up on my screen when I'm writing, I have my word count that I want to achieve that day. And I keep checking that off. And that's what motivates me to get it done. I get to check something off.
How many words do you normally write in a writing day?
Yeah, I try to set aside an hour or 3 20-minute sessions to write.
Okay.
And I will get about 500 to 600 new words.
Got it.
Now, if I'm really going, and that's because I write fast, but then I've got to take part of that time and go back and change it around so I know what I wrote the next day.
Yeah.
Okay, because if I just left it sit there, the next day I would go, what in the world is that about? I wouldn't know. So I got to go back and do it a little editing. But I can write, I guess my high days, I've done probably over 1,000 in an hour when I'm just sitting there going. I've
done 1,000. You sort of try for 500, but when you're in the flow, the time just disappears.
It really does. I'm looking at I'm actually pulling up while you're talking the word count on 21 Day Miracle. It is, it's about 40,000 words. So I wrote that in essentially 5 writing days. So what is that? 8,000. I think I was doing 8,000 a day at one point, which was a lot for as bad as I type. But the point that you make about scheduling is right, because on the days that I wrote. I mean, I wrote until my brain wasn't working anymore, until I was like a zombie fog. But the point there is really true, which is, I know a lot of people who are like, and I just really want to have a book. And I'm like, well, block the week off and get the book done. We have this, I don't know where it comes from, something we learned when we were young or something that, like, to be an author, you have to be like Henry David Thoreau and like go to Walden Pond and sit there for 3 years and think, and eventually this book will come out. But when really you wake up in the morning, you start writing.
Right.
What comes out at first truly is awful and unreadable, but eventually it starts coming together. It's like your brain just sort of gets into the gear just a little bit. It's like when you rode a bike for the first time, you fell, and then eventually you got to be riding a bike, So anyway, I thought that was interesting.
When I wrote my master's thesis, I was driving charter buses part-time, and I had a converter that I would take with me.
He was younger.
An IBM Selectric typewriter. And I would be out when my group goes into whatever event they were doing. I would go out, sit by the front tire, put the IBM Selectric on my lap, and that's where I wrote my master's thesis from.
By the way, if you're
So you don't have to have the ideal environment.
If you're under the age of 30,
you don't even know what that is.
A typewriter is it's actually this piece of gear where you actually pressed the letters, and the letters would go snap onto the paper. And if you messed the wrong letter, you either had to create a new piece of paper or you had to take white out. I remember doing this when I was in high school. Put white out on the thing and then put it back and then put the right letter in. Yeah. So no spell check, no grammar check, no squiggly red lines, no squiggly green lines. And I just remember, I won't tell the story. Let's get back into so give us some hot tips on oh, by the way, for those of you who just joined us, I should just welcome everybody who's just joined the show. This is not about the book. My name is Ed Rush. I'm here with Charles and Elaine Sanger. And some great comments in chat, by the way. Nabi said, working with and learning from others who have done it makes it easier to be successful, which is 100% true. So some really great comments. He said, I'm not 30. Oh, she said, I'm not 30, but I had a typewriter. So I shouldn't have said that. I should have said if you're younger than 15. All right. So let's make fun of the 15-year-olds and below. IBM Selectric. Oh my goodness.
So
some really great comments. Good.
Some people like Ed, I'm one that can do it. Elaine can do it now. We can take a big chunk of time and write our books. We can sit there for a week.
Yeah.
A lot of people are still working regular jobs,
yeah,
like we were doing when we were getting ready to go to the DR.
Right.
So they don't have that big chunk of time. But the best thing for them to do is set aside even a half hour. An hour is much better, but if they can set aside an hour 5 days a week, they'll get their book done in a year or under.
Yeah.
Okay. They can do it. We talked to, what's his name? He does all those books on leadership.
Maxwell. John Maxwell.
John Maxwell. He said, I write every day.
Yeah.
365 days a year.
Yeah.
I don't spend all day writing, but I write some every day. And he's got over 40 books on leadership out there.
Yep.
So that's how he does it. And I've heard, other writers that have quantities of books out there. That's how they do it. They spend a little time every day, and a lot of them are doing other things. That the book is important to them.
Yeah.
They've got, we've got life we got to live too. Yeah. We got to make a living and feed ourselves and spend time with our families and stuff.
That shouldn't stop you. If you have a lot of other responsibilities, just setting that time apart get you to your goal. And there's something else I'd like to talk about is what the book does for you. And I know, Ed, you talk a lot about as a business card, but I'd like to just introduce 3 things that a book really does for you. And one is certainly on that personal level. You clarify what your message is, what you want to say. It gives you tons of content and things like that, but it's really clarity, spending time alone writing. The second level is, so that's that personal level. Then there's a level with potential clients and people you want to do business with. It gives you that credibility because once you've published a book, it says, I'm an authority on this. I know how to do this. So you attract clients faster than someone who doesn't have a book. And then the third level is in the marketplace. A lot of people are really interested in public speaking and being influencers in the marketplace. Well, having a book gets you there, because if someone is choosing someone for their podcast or for an event to speak or whatever, if there are 3 people and one person has a book, guess who the event planner is going to pick?
No question.
The one with the book. So think about those 3 levels. And if any of those levels are where you fit in, where you want to go, just realize a vehicle for that is a book.
Yep. No joke. And it's not even that hard. I mean, you just gave, I think, a huge tip around getting a book done. And what you mentioned about John Maxwell is actually really interesting. One of my favorite tools is a free tool. It's on the screen right now. It's the Google. All you have to do is go into Google, type the word timer. Watch this. I'm going to put in 60 minutes and then I'm going to hit start. Okay. So here's the deal. You get on your computer, you go to Google Timer, You type in 60 minutes, you hit start, and nothing, all you do until that Google timer goes off is write. You got your phone off, you can have your text off, you can have your email off, no Facebook. You sit down and you write. If you need to go find something on social media, you put a note in your manuscript, you're gonna go find it later and you write. And I'm gonna tell you what Charles and Elaine said is right, which is you're gonna, at first, maybe it's not happening, but it happens a lot faster once it goes. And some great comments in chat. Everybody's talking about typewriters still, which is
Ed had two great things there that we really push too, is turn off the social media, put the iPhone away for an hour, okay? And I forget what the other one he said, but he said another one at the end. I'll remember it as well.
Timer, put it on, you're gonna start, it's not gonna be that great, but then as you get it going, it's gonna be awesome. So I really like that, it's really good. And so give us some, oh, by the way, I want to pull this up. Before I had a website up, and I just want to say this. There's a website. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to put the link below us right now. You can see there is a website. And Delisa, if you could drop this in the chat, that would be great too. I should have sent this to you, but it's yourmessagecentral.com/strategy-session. Let me show you really quickly what you get when you get there. I asked Charles and Elaine to do this. It was very kind of them. And I don't know how many they can do, but I'll say we can make room for at least the first 5 people. Come here to this website and you'll see you get an option to get on a phone call. By the way, I don't get any commission or anything from this. This is them helping you. Okay, it's an opportunity for them to get onto get onto a call with them for 30 minutes and just fill in the blanks here. You can see there's some questions, some really simple questions. Hit step number 3, and then you can jump on and do a call with them. It's very, very generous of them to be able to do that for you. So I asked when we got together 2 weeks ago to talk about this show, I asked, and they went, most people give like a download or something. They're going to give you some of their time, which is incredible. Yeah. So like I said, we'll do it for the first 5 people that want to do that. And you want to mention really quickly what that is so that we can, everyone knows what to expect on that call. So when
what we have them do is fill in a couple of questions on that form so we can prepare to figure out what we're going to discuss with them. Most of the time, it is for them to bounce their idea off of us and get some feedback from someone who's involved in books and book publishing. So it's our pleasure to do that. We love to hear what people are working on. So it's our pleasure to do it.
And it's not really a sales call.
No, it's not a sales call.
We'll during the call, we'll tell them what our offerings are, but we'll schedule another time to talk about that.
Yeah, that's great.
They want to. So that time on there is for them to talk about their book with somebody that's done books before and can maybe give them some tips and tricks and some ideas where they need to go.
There's no strings attached.
And Charles and Elaine do this for a living. So you're gonna get advice from somebody who knows. This isn't like you just talking to your uncle, you should get an opportunity to talk to somebody who knows. I mean, nothing against your uncle, but frankly, let's face it, your uncle doesn't know anything about publishing. Okay. So, so you get an opportunity to talk to somebody who really knows what they're talking about. All right. So let's go. I'm going to leave this website below. I know many of you are going to take advantage of this. And I put a artificial 5-person limit on it. And that's not to say they can't do the 6th or 7th person, but because I asked them to give away some of their time that's very valuable. I want to make sure that they get they still have time to enjoy themselves. So jump in if you're watching this on a video. If the page is still up, that means there's still slots. Okay. So let's get back into some publishing tips. By the way, in about 5 minutes, we're going to take your questions. So if you have any questions, publishing questions for Charles and Elaine, I know some of you are getting ready to launch your books. Okay. So if you have questions, put those in the chat now. But get back into publishing. What other strategies do you have for authors as they're either creating, publishing, or launching their book?
Our programs look at all the options that are out there. For some people, self-publishing is not the way to go.
Great. This is great. I get this question all the time, by the way. So hit this one hard. I thank you for going there. I completely forgot about this, but it's true. And I get this question a lot about self-publishing, traditional publishing, hybrid publishing. Why don't you go on that?
Okay. Traditional publishing is what most of us think about when we think about a publisher. You go, you sell your idea of your book to the publisher, usually through an agent that's going to take some of that money you make. But usually you work through an agent, they sell the idea to the publisher, and they will pay you an upfront fee to write your book and to get it published. Then you pay them back that fee before you get any commissions on your book. It's an advance. So you're getting an advance. So that's kind of how they work. Not everybody can get into traditional publishers. Okay. They're kind of limited in the numbers that they take, and they're getting pretty big, but they don't take everybody. They're looking for books that they know can sell. And that may not be the reason that you're doing your book. Your book may not be about, you've got to sell 50,000 copies to make a living off of it. You may have other reasons you're writing. So, and you don't want to self-publish because you don't really want to have to take all the time to learn about the publishing industry. So that's when the hybrids come in. We have a hybrid publishing company called Pilotage Publishing, and we select certain books. Mm-hmm. You've got to qualify. We've got to qualify to work together. And that you pay a fee for. That's because your book is a risk. That's why traditional won't touch it. So you're committed to your book. You pay us a fee, but you get the same services that you would get from a traditional publishing house.
Like being able to go into distribution.
Right. We get you through distribution.
Entering contests and things like that.
We get you entering contests. We can get you in the libraries if that's what you want to do. We talk about you to figure out what your goal with the book is. Another thing with traditional publishing, you lose all control of your book. Yeah. Anybody that's been there, I hear Ed said, yes, he must have been there once. Anybody that's been there says, the title, the content, the timing, all of it is, you give that up when you put your book into traditional publishing. In hybrid, we take a middle of the road thing. We listen to you, but we're going to say no if you're doing something that's going to make your book not work.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to advise you there. You don't get that advice in self-publishing. You can go ahead, do the stupid thing like put your dog, which may be beautiful, on the cover of your book that's about, the business life cycle or something. You probably don't want your dog there. Okay. So we've seen that, Ed. You've seen that, Ed, if you've looked at
a client. So I had back in 2009 to 2012, I had a online web agency, and I had a client. This isn't even an exaggeration. She loved her cat so much that it was very important for her to have a picture of her cat on every single page on her website someplace. And no matter what we could do, we couldn't talk her out of the cat. So you kind of laugh, but at the same time, what they're talking about is really important. And just so you know, as you're listening, there's three models. Remember, they said there's self-publishing, there's traditional publishing, and there's hybrid publishing. My preference these days is the middle column. So self-publishing, what that really means is Amazon. It means Amazon Kindle and Amazon paperback. Traditional publishing, what that means is you're going to wait about 9 months at least for your book to get published, and you're going to lose control. What they mean by that is, like, if you want the cover to look like that, well, guess what? You got to run that through your publisher, and they have to say, okay, see this first page? You all have heard me teach this probably, but this first page is responsible for 8,000 new leads in my business. 8,000 new email leads in my business. 8,000. A traditional publisher would have never let me get away with that.
That's right.
Never. Never. In fact, on the back cover, I've got that on the back cover, the link. They probably wouldn't even let me do that's you have to negotiate all that stuff. Okay. So they're going to tell you what, there's some edgy things that I say in this book that could offend people. Not smart people, by the way, just so you know. So they wouldn't let you do that. So the traditional model, you get to publish your book. But what I like that Charles and Elaine do, which you're not going to get from Amazon, you're not going to get your book into a bookstore from Amazon. You're not going to get your book into a library from Amazon. You're not going to get expanded distribution from Amazon. And that's a real important key. So if you want to walk into a bookstore and see your book, there's companies that'll do that for a lot of money for you, or you can work with Charles and Elaine and do it in a hybrid way, meaning you're going to get the benefits of self-publishing, all the benefits of traditional publishing, but not the downsides of both. Back to you.
Yeah. Right. And we work on helping you get a good book out there that meets all the I guess you could call it the industry standards or the best practices of doing a book.
Right.
We get your ISBN, we get you copyrighted, we get you registered with the Library of Congress. And then we talk about what you want your book to do. And that's going to help us figure out, do we want to make it a hardback? Do we want to make it just a softback? A soft cover? Do we want to make it an ebook? Do we want to make it all 3? And what size should it be? What's the interior look like? We work with you and work with you to build a book that's going to accomplish what you want it to do.
Right.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Ed did that when he put that front thing in the cover of his book. When I did my book, I didn't know to do that, or I'd have done that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, and we work with our authors to be sure that if they want to use their book as a business card, it's set up like a business card.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I wanted to use mine, but it's not set up like that. They can't really get in touch with me as easy as they can get in touch with Ed with what he did with his book.
Yep, that's exactly right. By the way, just as you're watching, thank you, Dr. Ed Barry, who said he said there was a problem with the link. That was on my end, and I apologize. So it should be lowercase. So I reposted the link inside a chat. So don't type the one that you see underneath them. Go to the one that says the one on the see where the S in strategy and the S in session are lowercase. Only my bad. But I did see Dr. Ed just signed up for assessment with you, and Dennis Bauer also signed up. Charles and Elaine, 2 great people coming your way, by the way. So
look forward to talking to them.
The first is a brilliant scientist, and the second is a great pilot and a great guy who's already written a book and self-published on Amazon. And so go over to that website and make sure that you do that. Now, real quick, I want to get into your questions. So if you have any questions, please put that in the chat. We just have a few minutes left. For those of you who just joined us, this is It's Not About the Book with my friends Charles and Elaine Sanger. We're talking about how to write a book. Now, I want to get to, I have a last question, and I have to get to this question. I just have to, okay? Because it's like the one question that only you can answer, okay? So I've had 452 clients, plus it's a little more than that now. And I'd say about 10% of the clients that come to me are couples in business. And of the 10%, which is about 45 people, I can count on 3 fingers the number of them that do it well. And what I mean by that is most couples that come to me, if they're couples, I end up having to like arbitrate their arguments half the time about one person thinks this, one person thinks this. Now, somehow you have managed together to work in business together and be married together, and you do both really, really well. How in heaven's name are you able to accomplish that? Please share your secret, because I'd love to be able to share it with anybody who's in business with their spouse.
Together.
Yeah, we lived on a little sailboat. We lived on a few gears, so we lived in tight spaces.
I think a big part of it. Well, just to go back to our sailing story, when we met, I was the sailor. Elaine had no clue. She thought it looked like a neat thing. A lot of guys would have drugged their lady out and into any kind of weather and sailing. But I took the time to work her through it and find out whether she liked it. And if she didn't get into sailing as much as I was, we would have never done that trip. Okay?
And then he sent me to sailing school. So
by
he
herself.
had to teach
so
me.
I wasn't on the boat. So she had to learn how to sail.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think that's key is we've got to know each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
We complement each other.
We do.
And it depends. A lot of that depends how we talk to each other. I do the operations. I do the I build the products and stuff like that, write the books and that stuff. Now we're co-authoring a book together.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
a whole new thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Elaine's marketing and stuff. And one of the ways that I've noticed we communicate is if it's about marketing, she'll come to me and she'll be pretty class A, pretty type A, that this is the way we're going to do it. But if she's talking to me about operations, she's more a question. What do you think about this?
Oh, that's really good.
I approach her the same way because we each have our feet. Now, that doesn't mean we don't ever argue because we get into
we
some
do
good
argue.
No, you never argue.
We do argue, but that cuts a lot of it down if we know our area and we're the authority in that area. The other person recognizes it and they can enter in, but they don't enter in as the authority.
I like that. I really like that. By the way, very unique relationship too. So Charles, in their business, like he said, he's operations. Charles is also the main teacher. So when you come to their events, Charles is the one who's doing most of the teaching and the presenting and most of the coaching, frankly. Elaine, however, is one of the best salespeople I know. Okay. And her background is in sales in the corporate world. So she's sold
and design.
Yes, I'm going to get to that. Yes.
Oh.
So she sold literally, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of product on the corporate side. So she's very good on the sales side, but also she's the one who works behind the scenes building websites and membership sites for their authors. So I like what you said about the way that you work. It seems to me like a good analogy for this is, when you're in a sailboat and you're coming back into harbor, you put the red markers on the right-hand side because that means the channel is moving in that direction. And you're in the channel. As long as you're in the channel, especially at low tide, you're going to be safe in a boat, right? So maybe as a couple, what you're doing is you each have your own channel that you're in. And if you go to the other person's channel, you know that person's in charge of this, and then you're in charge of this. You each have your own lane. So I really like that approach. And I just really honor the way that you've been able to do that in business. Again, it's very rare to see that done well. And you really do it great. Not only are you great business partners, not only are you great marriage partners, but you also seem to be really good friends. Like it looks like you really like each other, which is amazing.
Most of the time.
We have a singular mission and purpose. We've been very clear about what's important to us.
Yeah.
And we've taken the time to learn that. So we look at everything based on what our mission and what we feel what we should be doing in life. And that
didn't come overnight.
No,
it took us a while we kind of knew where we were as individuals, but it took us a while to figure out how that blended together as a couple.
Yeah.
Now our couple, our goals and mission as a couple are more important as they are for us as individuals, because if we're meeting it as a couple, we're meeting it as individuals.
Yeah, very good. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have just a few minutes left in the show. What I want to do is just turn it over to you for your big thoughts and wrap-ups. And while they're wrapping up, what I'd love for you to do in chat is tell me what your biggest takeaway is from today's show. I'm going to start putting some of these up. For example, Denise is already ahead of the game. She says, I love watching Charles and Elaine. Obviously, great respect and love for each other, even the way they look at each other, which is so true. I've worked with you guys so much. It just, the way you work together is just so inspirational. So thank you for being a great example, not just telling us what to do, but also being an example of what to do. So Charles, Elaine, why don't you give us your final thoughts? As you're doing that, I'll put the website below one more time, just so you know. The S's at the end are lowercase s and S for strategy session. Give us your wrap-ups. What are your thoughts?
My big thing I'd like to give the audience is to realize that writing a book is a transformative experience. We see that with all of our authors. When they start with us and we have our initial milestone meeting with them, we know where they're at that point in time. And we know as they go through writing their book, they're going to be going through lots of transformation and change. We've seen it with our published authors. In fact, some of our authors are on the second book. One's on the third. Well, we'll be starting the third because they love that transformative process and what we do as a group with everyone. So just realize you will not be the same person when you start writing your book as after you publish it. And it's worth that energy because it changes you.
That's right. And that's what your message is about. And that's why we say it's not ultimately about the book. Right. It's about the change it makes to the author.
Yeah.
Because anybody that's been through academics and been through the higher, degree programs has known they've had to write a thesis and had to write papers for classes and things like that. Well, the reason they make us do that is because that paper brings together all the learning we've supposed to have been doing through the course or through the semester. Yeah. And that's what writing does for us. We can go out and speak about it in half-hour or hour talks or teach it. But when we have to write it, that's when we really become an expert. So not only are we recognized as an expert because we have that book out there, we've become the expert because we've had to deal with writing that whole thing.
It's such an interesting point you just made right there at the very end. When you read a book, you really do capture the author I wrote this in 2 years ago, but
I've read it 3 times.
That's what I'm talking about, Elaine. I knew you were my favorite. So, it captures the spirit of the author in the moment. And the truth is, there's things that I would change, but that's me then. The next book is for that. By the way, there's some great comments, and I'm just going to wrap up with this. I'm going to say thank you in a minute, but I just want to say. I saw 2 more people sign up for your strategy session. That's, to my count, it's 4. That means now is the time. If you want to get in, go do that. It's yourmessagecentral.com strategy dash session, and that's lower cases. So
All lower cases.
So really great comment by Barry, who you know, Barry. Charles and Elaine have authenticity and then convey genuine passion about what they do. Denise says, just write it. That's her takeaway. I love it. Diana Lovejoy, who is an impressive organic gardener, is going to be working with you as well. She says, what a date. Looking forward to it. Ron says, thank you. Take away and get a schedule every single day. Starting beats thinking. That's really, gosh, that's a great, Nobby, that's a good book title, by the way, you just wrote there. So you take it before someone else does. Jim Rohn says on why to achieve a goal, because of what it makes of you. I love that. Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Great pictures. Kevin in the studio there. Extremely valuable. Thanks for doing this. Really great. Thank you, Wendell Buggs. That's exactly, you got that right, Ron. So my guest today, this has been It's Not About the Book. Don't forget, tomorrow, live event secrets with me. We're going to wrap up the show here in just a second. First of all, Charles and Elaine, I love you and I like you. Thank you so much for your time, your integrity, and your expertise. It's been really helpful for me, I know, and also for our community. So everybody give a clap in chat, please, for Charles and Elaine. Thank you. I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you. And we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yeah. And thank you.
Thursday.
Yeah,
Thursday.
Big pivot event. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching today. We're going to wrap up the show. Make sure you go to Your Message Central. Say hello to Charles and Elaine. Get involved with them if you can. Go get your book done. It's going to be the best thing that you do for your business, and you're going to have something that you can be proud of for the rest of your life. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're coming live from our event venue. EdTalks Live is out.